Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be going through demo problem 2, which is date printer. Let me give you a quick overview of this problem. This program is going to take 3 inputs. All of those are going to be of integer types. The first input is for year. An example would be 2021. The second input is for month. An example would be 2. The third input is for day. An example would be 14. Then the program is going to output formatted date, which would be Feb 14th of apostrophe 21. Let me switch to my Chrome window and we'll get started by defining a format underscore date function, which includes 3 parameters: year, month, and day. Whenever you want to create a program that returns a string value, it is common for programmers to use a variable which is initialized to an empty string and keep adding components to that particular variable. That's what we are going to do now. Let me define a variable called date underscore str, and I'm going to initialize it to an empty string. I can simply do that by typing double quotation, close double quotation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to typecast each of the arguments inside the parameters into a string type, and I'm going to add that onto date underscore str. For now, we are just going to convert the input of integer into string type. I can do that by typing date underscore str plus equal to str of month. Recall that plus equal to is syntactic sugar shortcut in Python. It just is equivalent to saying date underscore str equal to date underscore str plus str of month. It saves you a lot of time with respect to typing. Let me repeat the conversion for day and year. And what we are going to do next is we are going to return the variable date underscore str from this function. Let's run the function definition. I'm going to call the function by passing 2021, 2 and 14 as arguments. Looks like we're getting some output, but the output is not readable here. That's because we did not add in a space in between each of the components that we added on to the date underscore str variable. Let's fix that by adding a space in between month and day. Let's also add a space in between day and year. I'm going to rerun the two cells here. Looks like we are getting a better output now. Let's go back to the slide deck and we are going to convert the month into the required format. Looks like we need the first 3 characters of the name representation of the month here. You can imagine creating a conditional as part of this function which checks if month is equal to 1, then do something with the string Jan. Elif month equal to 2, do something with the string Feb. You can see the problem here, correct? This particular function is going to get cluttered very easily if we keep having all the parts of this particular problem defined within a single function. So we are going to decompose this problem into 3 separate functions. Let me cut these lines and I'm going to create a new cell above this cell. I can do that by clicking on the previous cell, pressing escape on my keyboard, and then if I press B, that will create a new cell. I'm going to type whatever I cut from the previous cell. Let me define a format underscore month function which is going to have one defined parameter of month. What we want to do with the string Jan is that we just want to return that value. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish defining the conditional here. So I'm going to type elif month equal to and a colon so that I can copy this line. When month is 3, we want to return March, and when month is 4, we want to return April. when month is 5, we want to return May. If month is equal to 6, we want to return June. If month equal to 7, we want to return July. When the month is 8, we want to return August. And when the month is 9, we want to return September. When the month is 10, we want to return October. And when the month is 11, we want to return November. When the month is 12, we want to return December. Let's say that we want to handle invalid input case. So we are going to write an else which is going to return invalid input. Let me run this particular cell. And what we are going to do now is we are going to use the format underscore month function instead of typecasting the month into a string here. So I'm going to call format underscore month function and I'll be passing month as argument. Let's rerun the cell and the function called cell. Looks like we're getting Feb for month 2, which is correct. Let's test few more cases here. What if I change the month to 5? We are getting May. What if I change it to 6? We are getting June. What if I change it to 8? We are getting August. Let me go back to February version of arguments here. Let's look into what is needed for the day next. Looks like we need to convert the day here into an ordered number. What do I mean by ordered number? When your input date is 1, then you want first. If your input is 2, you want second. If your input is 3, you want third. And for the rest, you want th as the suffix, correct? Let's define a format underscore num function. I'm going to call that as format underscore num because I want to generalize that to handle all the numbers and not just the numbers between 1 and 30. I'm going to define my parameter as num here. Let's think about what we want to do here. If the number is 1, then we want the suffix to be st. If the number is 2, then we want the number suffix to be nd and so on, correct? So let's type out the condition here. I'm going to say if num is equal to 1, then return st. St is not the only part that is needed here, correct? We'll have to return the number and the suffix along with it. Can you just concatenate num here to the string st? Python is going to be unhappy about that. Why is that the case? Let me show you an example. Let's say that you have a variable val which contains a value 10 and you want to perform the expression operation of val plus string st. Python is going to be unhappy about that because you're trying to use the plus operator on two different data types here. How can you fix this particular issue? You can basically typecast the integer into string type and Python will be able to process that here. Let me mention one more thing here. Let's say that you have the variable val initialized to 10 and that you want to call the print function to display some string saying the value inside val is. You cannot use the concatenation plus operator here to display val. Python is going to give you similar error where it is complaining that it cannot concatenate the string with an integer. How can you fix this? You can use the comma instead. When you use a comma, these two are going to be two different arguments to your print function call and print will be able to handle that part. So going back to where we were, to the format underscore num function, we'll have to typecast num to a string type here. We typed out the first part of the condition which is if num equal to 1. We'll have to say elif num equal to 2. You need to be careful here It should be an elif because it is part of the same conditional. If you type an if here, that would give you a different behavior, which is not really the correct behavior for this program. If the number is 2, we'll have to return str of num plus nd, correct? And similarly, if the number is 3, we'll have to return str of num plus rd, and finally you have an else case where you want to return str of num plus th. Let's run this particular function definition. Instead of using this function directly inside the format underscore date function, I'm going to come up with a set of test cases because this is a tricky function to implement. Let's call the function by passing 1 as the argument. Looks like we are getting first. I'm going to use the print function call so that we can keep testing for various inputs here. What if we try 2? We are getting second. What if we try 3? Alright, we are getting third. What if we try 11? 11th, that seems to be correct. What if we try 21? Oh no, we are getting 21th, which is not correct. So if you think about that, what matters here is that the last digit is 1, 2 or 3 being the special case or the exception case here. So how can you get the last digit out of a number? You can use the modulo operator, correct? Let me give you an example. I'm just typing some random big number here. If I use the modulo operator and find the remainder when I divide by 10, I'm going to get the last digit out. What if I change the last digit to 5? That's going to give me a result of 5 here. We are going to use this particular modulo operator for our format underscore num function. Instead of saying if num equal to 1, I'll have to say num mod 10 equal to 1. Similarly, I'll have to say num mod 10 equal to 2, num mod 10 equal to 3. Let me run the function definition and run the function call cell again. Looks like we're getting first, second, third, 11th. Oh no, we caused some other problem now. What is the problem here? The problem here is that the numbers between 11 and 20 are going to be an exception for applying the last digit special case here. So what will be the exception? If the number falls in between 11 and 20, then you want th as the suffix, correct? So where can you include that as part of your conditional here? Can you just include that after the second elif? That will cause a problem, correct? Why will that cause a problem? That's because in your conditional, each of your conditions in the Boolean expressions are evaluated in the order in which you type them. So the if condition is going to be evaluated first. If the if condition evaluates to true, then you'll never evaluate the rest of the conditions. So what will happen if the number is 11 here? The if condition, which is num mod 10 equal to 1, will evaluate to true, and you'll never get to the elif if you end up writing the elif over here. So you need to carefully think about the order of evaluation of your conditional before you finish writing your entire conditional here. I also need to make sure that I don't leave the if as a separate conditional here. That will again cause a problem. So if I say if num is in between 10 and 20, I can define that in a couple of ways. I can say 10 less than or equal to num less than or equal to 20. Or alternatively, I could say num greater than or equal to 10 and num less than or equal to 20, whichever you prefer. If I use the current version of the program, that's going to cause a problem. Let me show you why that is the case. Looks like we are getting 11th now. What happened in that case is that you're using a return statement. Return statement is final, so that would be totally okay with the current version of the program. What if we were to store this into a variable instead? What would happen then? Let me temporarily use a variable called val. I'm going to initialize that to an empty string. I'm going to capture the return value into a variable called val. Instead of using return there, I'm going to simply use a common return statement outside my conditional here. What do you think will happen then? Give me just a second to fix this, and I'm going to put the return statement outside my conditional here. That caused a problem, right? We got 11th. Why is that the case? That's because when you're done evaluating the first conditional here, you will evaluate the next conditional. So the next conditional is going to update the value of val with the st prefix here. So I'm going to go back to the previous version of the program where I return all of these values directly from inside my conditional. So this is going to be a tricky case for you to get used to when you have a return statement as part of your conditional. So let me fix this whole conditional into a single conditional. I'm going to change the second if to an elif here. Let's rerun the cell here. Looks like we are getting the correct output, right? We are getting 11th and 21st. What if I try 111? That's the whole point of me making this function generic. Let's say that we want to use this function for street numbers or things like that. Looks like we are getting 111th, which is not correct. Why is that the case? Once again, the key here is that the last two digits of your number should be between 10 and 20. How can you identify the last two digits of your number? You can use the modulo operator to find the remainder when you divide by 100, correct? I'm getting 95 now. What if I change the penultimate digit to 4? I'm getting 45. So let's fix that. I'm going to do that by saying first condition should be num mod 100 should be in between 10 and 20. Let's try to rerun the cell again. Looks like we are getting 111th. I think that covers all the cases with respect to formatting numbers in general. So let's use the format underscore num function. I'm going to replace line number 5 here where we are using the string typecast function with the format underscore num function. Let's try to rerun the current cell and the next cell. Looks like we are getting February 14th, 2021. The last part is pretty simple. You'll just have to extract the last two digits from the year. We already know how to do that. And then we'll have to add in the apostrophe here. I'm going to directly include that as part of this function itself instead of writing a separate function for it. So I'm going to say off and then single quotation. Then I'm going to append or concatenate, concatenate the string version of the year, but I need to make sure to take out the last two digits. I need to say mod 1000, correct? Let me rerun this function definition and the function call cell. Looks like we're getting the correct output here. Make sure to go through this example, try to reproduce it on your own and try out various inputs to confirm that the parts of the program are working correctly. This is the most complex example that we have covered so far in this lecture. I'll wrap up this video here. In the next video, I'll do a brief walkthrough of the slide deck from today's lecture.